Cable, or as he is often called, Nathan Summers, was an important character in X-Men 97. He played another pivotal role in Deadpool 2 without being tied to Cyclops. But who is this fan-favorite time-traveling character? After all, he's been multiple man, James Howlett and Nathan Summers, yet they're all Cable. He shares the Winter Soldier's metallic arm and giant gun, and accessorizes them with a metallic eye. They complete his quite fearsome look, and Terminator-like if Deadpool is to be believed. Then again, most often Cable comes from a dystopian future in the 39th century. In this video, we'll explore some of the many versions of Cable, as we have seen in the comics and on the screen, and answer all these questions you've had about the titular time-traveling mutant. Let's begin with Nathan Summers.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Who is Nathan Summers? This time-traveling mutant, usually a son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister in the comic books, comes from a dystopian future, even though he was born to Scott and his wife centuries earlier. What happened was, the Apocalypse was hoping to use Nathan, and thus infect him with a technovirus, to see if his body would be a good host. At Apocalypse's defeat, a reluctant Scott gave Nathan to Mother Ascani, who was actually Rachel Summers, to save the child's life. In the future, Nathan got his techno-arm and eye while battling the virus, which also needed quite a bit of his telepathic and telekinetic powers to keep in check. He had to return to the 21st century to defeat Stryfe, a clone of his raised by Apocalypse and his minions, who were hell-bent on destroying Scott Summers and Jean Grey, the boy's biological parents. This is where Cable, the name Nathan has now picked, helps reassemble the X-Force with new mutant members. The group often works with wisecracking Wade Wilson, aka the Merc with a Mouth, probably what played a part in inspiring Deadpool 2. Cable has had an important role to play post-M-Day, where he rescued the first mutant baby born after the events, and named her Hope Summers. Hope would ultimately be Cable's salvation by using the Phoenix Force to cure him of the technovirus. And while Cable is free of the virus, he has to live with the knowledge that almost in every life, he's the reason he gets infected in the first place, even though what Apocalypse did could never be pinned on him. For you see, what happened was at one point, our boy Nathan time-traveled to ancient Egypt, hoping that infecting Apocalypse with the same virus that Nathan had would kill the god and change the course of history. But time isn't always a wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey thing. Here, Nathan's actions turned Apocalypse into the godlike being he is, which ultimately is what led to Nathan getting infected. Yep, a time loop. A causes B and B causes C, but C causes A and the cycle is never ending. Think Rose Tyler and Bad Wolf, which is funny because Tyler is Cable's son's name. But is there a Marvel universe where Nathan Summers doesn't get infected and gets to live with his family? Let's take a look at some appearances of Nathan Summers, aka Cable, to find out. Be warned, some of these stories can get dark. What if Cable? Here, Apocalypse conquered the world, and so Nathan lived with his parents in the Savage Lands, until he had to escape with Sauron. As expected, the two ended up in Antarctica, reminding us of Conan's walk to our times from his. In Antarctica, Nathan and Sauron meet Logan and become members of the Defenders team. Nathan unlocked his full powers using Molecule Man. In their adventures, the Defenders came to a point where they were crossing the Dark Dimension. Brother Voodoo tried to leave Nathan alone to battle Dormammu, which led to Nathan taking the Eye of Agamotto from the Sorcerer. Using this, his powers, and the powers of his friend Owen, Nathan defeated Apocalypse. Before he could use his powers to open a portal to change the past, Captain America, with the aid of Mjolnir, killed this version of Nathan Summers, or Cable. While Nathan Summers has never had an easy life and ended up as Cable more often than not, there were some peaceful stories such as Brother Nathan. Before we explore them though, we want to look at Nathan's clone, Stryfe. Whether that is his twin or brother or just another version of the guy, you decide and let us know. What do we know then? Well, here it is. Stryfe, called Chaos Bringer. This was a clone of Nathan Summers raised by Apocalypse to be cruel and bloodthirsty. Essentially, the boy was made when Ascani thought Nathan would not survive the technovirus. They greatly accelerated his growth and reduced the virus in him. Of course, we know Nathan survives, but the moment that happened, Apocalypse and his forces attack. The Ascani are only able to take one child when they run, and Apocalypse takes the clone, thinking him to be the original. Of course, when he realizes that the vessel he's prepped for his sentience is a clone, he loses it, at which point his charge, Chevere, along with the help of Cyclops and Jean Grey, ends the tyrant. Sadly, all these revelations and shocks make Stryfe go insane, and as he grows, even his old tutor Chevere feels he cannot control him. Eventually, Stryfe tortures and then kills him, after which he beams the last remaining Ascani sister to his ship to tutor him. Nathan and Stryfe had many legendary battles over the years, and had many resurrections, and were the cause of several deaths. One of the casualties was Tyler, Nathan's son, who wasn't killed but brainwashed and then had to be shot by Cable himself. His wife too had died thanks to Stryfe's forces. When Cable went to the past, Stryfe followed, and often Rachel and Nathan Summers had to erase Stryfe's memories to prevent the timeline from changing too much. Stryfe also died several times, but once he survived by taking hold in Cable's consciousness, a hold he only released to ensure no cure to the legacy virus could be found. Another time, he returned because he died at a non-nexus point in time. After an event known as the Messiah War, Apocalypse tortured Stryfe, and after defeating him, the clone went back in time to take revenge on those who had wronged him, using Hope Summers as his tool. He failed. Eventually, Stryfe managed to use a deal with Deadpool, where Wade had to save his family and his daughter was being held hostage by Stryfe, to get the man to kill Cable, but Nathan somehow returned later. Alongside Cable's telepathy and telekinesis, Apocalypse genetically engineered Stryfe to have augmented strength, speed, stamina, durability, and reflexes. Stryfe was also a master combatant and a certified genius. That was a lot. Let's catch our breath and move on to another version of Cable, shall we? Phalanx. While Stryfe was Nathan Summers from Earth 4935, Phalanx was from Earth 58162. His story is relatively simple but horrifying. Cable became consumed by the technovirus, but the virus wanted to fulfill Cable's dream of unification. It did so by infecting all living beings, making Cable the first one. Well, a world of mechanical beings? Ultron would be happy. Phalanx had the same powers as Nathan Summers did, making him extremely powerful. But then again, so are all the other versions of Cable. Wired. Wired is from Earth 96102, where he was born Nathan Chase, not Nathan Summers. A manhunter, Chase was built using cybernetic cable that bound together flesh and machine. His two nemeses and the cause of his death were two women, Castia and Dare. You see, they were both assassins. Nathan too apparently had the abilities of an assassin, alongside damage resistance and the ability to make super blades from himself. Though the blade ended up being his demise, so is that really a power anyone wants? Moving on, next in line in the catalog of Cables, we have Ultimate Cable. James Howlett from Earth 216 is Ultimate Cable. Wait, Howlett? As in Wolverine? Wow, what's the story there, eh? Well, turns out everything was going as it did on Earth 616, except when Apocalypse defeated the X-Men. The ancient mutant absorbed Cable's healing factor and scarred him with his own torn left arm. The next 3 days, Cable spent fighting Apocalypse until he found time travel, and went back to win the fight that started it all, by kidnapping Professor X and teaming up with Bishop to build a team of X-Men, strong enough to defeat the ancient god. When Phoenix finally defeated Apocalypse, she also erased any possibility of Wolverine becoming Cable. This version of the time-traveling mutant has several powers that differentiate him from the rest, such as heightened strength, stamina, and reaction time, as well as slowed aging and superhumanly acute senses. So, do other Cables come from other characters? Does bonding with the symbiote count? Because that happened with Poisonous Cable. Venomized Cable of Earth 22186 assimilated with Poison Cable on Earth 17952 and was then sent to get superpowered people into the Hive. He also fought heroes at the Manhattan Bridge, alongside others than Poison Marvel Girl, but it's assumed that the poison in him died when Jean Grey from another time killed the Hive Queen. This version of the character probably had all the powers that a symbiote host does. The next version is OP though, because it's a horseman of Apocalypse. Which one? Of course, it is War. Earth 5701's Cable was chosen by Apocalypse to be War when the mutant god decided on his plans for world dominance. Of course, he corrupted his horsemen as always. This Cable was strong enough to kill Deadpool and is guilty of, dark themes ahead, genocide on Earth. Even a multiverse-hopping Deadpool had to leave the field when faced with this version of his teammate. What powers does this version of Cable have? Well, the standard Nathan Summers power set, except we think being a horseman should have dialed them up. Another version of Cable that should have been more powerful because he's cybernetically enhanced but is presumed to have the standard power set is Niles Cable. Let's take a look at who that is. Niles Cable. As mentioned, this version of Cable from Earth 9602 is a metamutant, hailing from yet another apocalyptic future. This Cable gathers a group of metamutants in the past, known as the X-Patrol, to prevent his dystopian future from coming true. Betrayed by Terra X, Niles got Jericho into his ranks. This is interesting because Jericho is actually Niles Dayspring here, a past version of Niles Cable himself. As the 10th Doctor would say, this is all very timey-wimey. Niles Cable dated Elastigirl, and had fought Brother Brood multiple times. mutants, saving and being saved by heroes. While he was infected with a non-virus, he was also revived. This version of the character is also a paraplegic, as his spine was broken in a battle with Dr. Doomsday. When it comes to powers, he's assumed to have the standard Nathan Summers power set, the Metamutant version. For all these Metamutants, Horsemen of Apocalypse, etc. versions of Cable, one thing that always remains constant is his love for Aaliyah Summers. Other than Niles Cable dating Elastigirl, another time we've heard of Cable siring a child with another woman is Old Man Cable, and his story isn't much different from the Cable of Earth 616 when it comes to his birth. He was born to Madeline Pryor, but here's a twist. He considered Jean Grey to be his true mother because genes. So who was the woman who gave birth to Cable's son, Alexander Nathan Summers? Let's see in the story of Old Man Cable. Old Man Cable. This is a Cable from Earth 19647, who at some point had a son with Storm. Yes, Storm. And the boy was named Alexander. Together, they traveled to another point in time, with Alexander serving the Existence, an entity that lives to protect mutant kind. When Namor attacked the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters to fight Major X and the Existence, Cable, alongside Deadpool and Alexander, intervene, saving Jean Grey, Storm, and defeating Namor. The father-son duo then leaves to make a better future, where the threat that led to the need for the Existence for the mutant safety never happens, while Storm says Alexander will forever stay in her heart, as he is nothing short of spectacular. You see, she can feel how they're connected. Cable tells her the less she knows about their union, the better, and she agrees, but says when called upon, she will always help Alexander. While we see Cable as a fighting machine, this is Alexander's story where his powers save his family, and he meets the mother who had died when he was but a baby. So sweet. Wiping a tear from my eyes, I continue on to yet another version of Cable, this one from Earth 616. And no, it isn't Nathan Summers, because comics can be complicated like that. James Madrox. This was a dupe of Multiple Man who survived the death of the original by convincing Beast to make him a serum that will prevent his death. It could also allow him to make multiples of his own. Then he stole a temporal beacon from Bishop and escaped into the future where he became an emperor. He had a change of heart in the future and time traveled to create a resistance against the past emperor version of himself, with other versions of himself. One of these dupes was sent to find the X-Men but ended up in a future where they didn't exist and felt pulled to the cause of the Ascani in fighting Apocalypse. He also bonded with Warlord of that world and got his powers alongside the ones he had of Nathan Summers and Multiple Man. Though how he has Nathan's powers is a mystery. All these shenanigans, essentially caused by a time loop created by this Cable, ended when the Emperor had to kill himself, tragic and dark, to kill the dupes. This story makes some fans think that Cable is more of a legacy title among time-traveling heroes rather than a name for Nathan Summers, and yet it's more often than not Nathan who uses it, as we see in the story, Brother Nathan. Earth 58161 is interesting despite Deadpool of Earth 616 calling it boring. See, this is one peaceful world where Cable has achieved his dreams of peace and harmonious living. He managed to eradicate prejudice, war, and hunger. Also, TV was given up by people because the programs were just bad, but that's neither here nor there. This Cable even managed to convince Wade Wilson's Deadpool, the one of 58161, of the virtues of this world. Man is a magician or something because this belies any suspension of belief we could have. Oh, and he has the same powers as most Cables. Telepathy and telekinesis, and despite the ban on weapons, he carries one as a ceremonial or sentimental piece. If only we lived in Earth 58161. Which we don't. So let's look at other worlds we see on screen and in the pages of the comics. Cable animated version. As always, animated works often closely follow comics, and yet give the storyline a new spin. Cable has appeared in X-Men the Animated Series, and of course in X-Men 97, where we see him both as Nathan Summers and Cable. Here, Nathan Summers is the son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, who was a clone of Jean that replaced her without anyone knowing. Cable, though, according to X-Men the Animated Series, was a clone of Jean and Scott, who Rachel Summers, using the Phoenix Force, brought to the Sinister timeline. This man, Cable, spent most of his life fighting Apocalypse and had several appearances as the leader. X-Men 97 adds to these origins. Now Nathan Summers is the son born to Scott and Jean's clone Madeline, whom Bishop takes to the future as we mentioned. Infected by the technovirus, he has to be taken by Bishop, not Rachel Summers, to the future to survive, and presumably comes back to do the stuff he did in X-Men the Animated Series, such as help create the necessary antibodies for mutant survival and so on. It's complicated, which thankfully isn't the case for the character's live-action appearance in Deadpool 2. Cable in live action. In Deadpool 2, Cable is a time traveler from the future coming to kill Russell, who in the future killed Cable's daughter and wife, their names being Aaliyah and Hope Summers, indicating Cable might be related to Cyclops or Havoc, but nothing is ever confirmed or denied. The character first tries to kill Russell at a prison where Wade and him are detained as mutants. When Russell escapes, Cable follows and Wade assembles the X-Force to help save Russell, who hasn't done anything yet and isn't Fire Fist, while the whole team other than Deadpool and Domino die, and Russell gets Juggernaut on his side. Eventually, Cable comes around and joins the X-Force. While he agrees to let Wade talk Russell down, he silently swears that he will kill the boy if the plan doesn't work. It doesn't, and Cable fires at Russell, but Wade sacrifices his life, which leads to Russell changing his heart and never becoming Fire Fist. Cable then uses his last time-traveling device to save Wade, and everybody walks off heroically. Cable's powers are impressive, especially his fight skills and his shooting, as well as the use of his mechanical arm. Another heroic version of Cable, without having the arc from Child Killer, is Man Cable. Man Cable was created when Cable in the storyline Moira 7-1 was blasted by the remains of Xylo, the first Defender, and the holder of all his knowledge. Now he began calling him the X-Man. The merged X-Man was crucial in getting to the Moira engine and stopping Mr. Sinister's reset of reality. After around 900 years, Orphan Madrox ended the story of X-Man, who was fondly recalled. This Cable possessed all the knowledge of Xylo combined with the telepathic and telekinetic powers of Nathan Summers from Earth 616. Let's take a look at yet another version of Cable. General Nathan Summers. This is a future Fury from the beginning of Winter Soldier who was trying to build the MCU. Before you say what, let us explain. Get your drink of water, for this is a doozy. What happens is Evan Sabanur's Apocalypse becomes the greatest threat Earth has to defend itself against. Not avenge, defend. And Wolverine rises to the occasion when Destiny forces his hand by making a team of heroes to fight Evan. Simply called X-Force, this group makes Evan bite the dust and then turns into tyrants. How? Well, see, they believed in the Nick Fury version of safety. They began hunting down criminals, and then even started monitoring to find people and kill them as soon as they had a criminal thought. Oh, and they ruled our planet too. Chilling. Where was Cable in all this? Heroically fighting against the X-Force? Nah, man. He was a member and led a cell with his daughter Hope Summers and his buddy Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool. To think, someone with all the super strength, telepathy, and telekinesis of Nathan Summers pre-Technovirus Purge was all a part of this. I suppose it's what they say, give them long enough and every hero becomes a villain. Well, those were the 15 most powerful versions of Cable according to our team. What do you think of the character and his various storylines? Let us know in the comments. Until then, it's time for a...
Searching.
Marvelous verdict. Cable is interesting no matter what iteration, as he's often the harbinger of doomsday news. When he's a Summers child, he also brings a lot of emotional core and context to the story, making viewers feel for him despite some of his actions. A powerful mutant with a gun and telepathy, he cuts a striking figure wherever he is in a story, whether that is the vengeful father, the scared son, or something else. One of our favorite characters, we hope to see where X-Men 97 takes the man. Who's your favorite mutant character, and which version of Cable do you like the best? Let us know in the comments.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.